I know you've got a philosophy which is yes to anything they ask for.
Our policy is absolutely yes, but it's not yes for free. You know, there is a cost to it, and whatever that cost is, it will be passed on. It does not start with a no or a maybe or could we. The policy is yes.
Another episode of Stephen Sully Study. I'm Stephen Sully, your host and the founder of the podcast. I've got my next guest. I'm on site today near Lakeside. The owner of this company, a massive company called Wyldecrest Park Homes, is the largest operator of park homes in the country. And in the next 5 years or 4 years, the goal, the vision is for him to be the largest park homes operator in the world. He's going to take on the American giants. I think he's already got 5 sites or 6 sites already in America. The guy's called Alfie Best. He has helicopters, Bugattis. You know, his son is also an entrepreneur who's featured on a reality TV show. Basically, this guy's got so much going for him, and so has his family. And I'm really interested to find out not only what it takes to be a serial entrepreneur or business person, someone that is a go-getter, and just like myself, he has a boxing background. Being a traveller, travellers, gypsies, they have a bit of a culture and a heritage of fighting. They're fighters. So I wanted to see how much influence that has made in his businesses and also achieving his goals and certain status in his sector. No doubt you're going to find a lot of value from this. I listened to him on Rob Moore's podcast roughly about a year ago, and I found it so inspiring. I just had to get him on my own podcast. Be happy, never content, stay tuned, and I look forward to your comments. So Alfie Best, thank you very much for coming onto the podcast. I'm absolutely honoured. As I just said earlier, 7 days from now is a year that you was on Rob Moore's podcast, who's actually my mentor for my own podcast, who's a friend of mine, on the Disruptive Entrepreneur. I've listened to you on now, Mark Comer's podcast, which is called Mark My Words, and then also the Progressive Property one. And I've heard other little snippets from different things. And I have to say, I'm not just saying it, in my top 5 episodes I've ever listened to, from all different kinds of podcasts, you're definitely up there. And I, you know what, it's not just because of what you've achieved in your status, but as I said, you sound so relatable. I feel like I can learn from you so easy, and that just might just be me. I don't know.
No, well, with a build up like that, there's not a lot I can say, but thank you anyway. Look, I think I hate the word "let's keep it real," but what I would say is I'm no different now than I was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and I don't want to be no different in another 5 year, 10 year, 20 year, regardless of it. I get up in the morning no different than anybody else and just go to work. I'm just in a very lucky position that I love what I do. I get up, I eat it with a spoon. When I go to work, I feel like a Premier League football player, and I'm just putting the ball in the back of the net. It is as simple as that for me.
Yeah.
And you're right. And Rob Moore, fantastic guy. I remember when he came down and did an interview here, and he has helped create a lot of people's wealth through property and done a lot of good stuff for a lot of good people because he's put them on the road of their success.
Yeah, he's given a lot of people inspiration and motivation and an education in some senses.
Yeah, 100%.
To direct them down the path. I mean, without him, I probably wouldn't have ever started a podcast myself.
Well, look, what you've got to think of is if you enjoy it and you love it, at some point you would have done it. But if you've got somebody like Rob that's helped push you down the road and they've done it earlier, well, he deserves a round of applause and more.
Yeah, well, just on that, it seems a bit organic to say this, but so has there been any kind of mentors or people that you've looked up to in your life?
My dad.
In what way?
Well, my dad's the hardest working man you'd ever want to meet. He's 6'4", got hands like bunches of bananas. He's 72 years old today and still works on the tools harder than anybody I know. So for me, my dad has been a blessed mentor. Unfortunately, what I would say is my dad is a hard worker and I don't believe that he has used his brain in the way that he could have because his work ethic is second to none. But sometimes you have to use your work ethic with the knowledge that you're picking up along the way and change. And as you change and develop, you become a better manager of people, you become a better teacher, because we don't start off as teachers. We start off, and when you're teaching, you're actually then learning yourself. You've got to remember, till the day we die, we are all students, but the student only becomes a teacher by listening.
Yeah, so true. So talking about your business then, we're in Wyldecrest Parks, your head office, HQ, yep. And I know fully well, I think when I listened to the podcast, you were definitely number one in the UK, and I think you had just ventured over into America.
Yeah,
but now you're actually you're actually the biggest in Europe.
That's correct.
And you're still carrying on that momentum in America. So what made you wanted to get into Wyldecrest? Why didn't you go into like, I don't know, single lets or HMOs or these other things? Why did you pigeonhole into this sector?
Okay, the answer is this. I believe that property and housing is the staple diet of the UK, and I really do believe that. I've always had a love for property, and we have a commercial property company which was trading very well before we got into mobile home parks. My first park came up for sale, which was in Lakeview Park in Romford.
Yep.
We bought that 18 years ago. The reason I bought it is because I come from a gypsy family, and who better to understand a park home or a mobile home than somebody that's been brought up living, breathing, eating. But it took me 30 years. I was 30 when I bought my first park home estate. But it took me 30 years to find my way to something that I really love. Now, I've loved every business I've done, and we've done all sorts. We've done van hire centres, we've done mobile communications, commercial property, commercial development, you know, anything where that's concerned, we've done it. And I've done it with a passion and loved it. But park homes has always been very different. On a number of occasions, we've been approached by different funds to buy us out. You know, we've not looked to sell because we love what we do. And that passion doesn't only flow from me, it flows from the people that work within the business.
Yeah. I mean, some of the, I don't know if I can ask what the sort of numbers were if they were thrown at you by these funds.
You know, I'll tell you exactly. We had one offer for £500 million for the business. That was only last year.
Cash?
Yeah, to cash us out. Our business has an asset value now of 375 million without debt. With debt, it's 425 million. So
that's with mortgages and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our debt load was 60 million, and it's now only just come down to 45 million. So, yeah, I mean, if those figures are right, our valuation on our assets are about 425 million, and we own now 45 million. We've only just had them revalued, but then again, on top of that, you value the goodwill of the business, you value the infrastructure and the setup that we have.
Yeah.
So that's where they've come up with their figure of 500 million. We had, we looked to float it on the stock market. And the stock market put a valuation on it of 700 million. Now, you know, this to me is all very alien, but they then value the expertise that we have within the business. You know, from our managing director here was a junior director of Emirates Airlines. Our finance director here was the FD of High Tech Shoes. You know, our estates licensing officer was the licensing officer that wrote the licensing. And we have a director of planning who was a director of several different councils in planning. So we've tried to bring in the right people. Do we get it right? No. We cock up every day. I cock up every day. But I learn from our mistakes, and we try to implement a procedure to stop those mistakes happening.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we get let down. Like this year, we felt we got let down a number of times by different contractors, and we had to bear the brunt of that from our residents that were moving in, our new residents. But they actually could see what had happened. We'd done our job, but that we'd been let down by a third party. But here's the point. You can't pass the buck. We're Wyldecrest. We're the ones that have to carry the brunt for everybody because our customer comes first. And they do come first.
Yeah, I know you've got a philosophy which is yes to anything they ask for.
Our policy is absolutely yes. No matter who rings here, if it's as long as they're one of our residents, the policy is yes. And I defy anybody to ring here and ask for something that they want that Wyldecrest will not provide, as long as it's on the park. But it's not yes for free. You know, there is a cost to it, and whatever that cost is, it will be passed on. But our policy is yes. It does not start with a no or a maybe or could we. The policy is yes.
And how do you think that's stood for you over the last few years, having that policy? Because most people would be afraid to put something so strong like that out.
Yeah, of course they would. But the reason they're so frightened of it is because we live in a world where we want to check outside to see if it's raining.
Yeah.
We want to check outside to see if it's too hot, too cold. You know, whereas I say, just go out.
Yeah.
Enjoy yourself. You know, we live in a culture where it's easy for them to be worried that something's going to go wrong instead of worried that it's not going to go wrong.
Yeah, I understand that. So going back to let's say the offers that you've had, when I listened to the podcast before, you were speaking about floating the company. How come you haven't got to that point yet?
I had several meetings to do it, and we have no real gain to float. And if we do float, it then becomes obviously a publicly quoted company.
And a lot more red tape?
Well, there's a lot more red tape, but that doesn't concern us too much. What does concern us is at the moment we're a private company with a relatively small amount of debt that's organically growing. So how is it going to help us by floating on the stock market, which would allow us more access to more money, but we can't buy the parks quick enough? You know, has funding tightened up when we're doing deals at this moment in time? Yes, it has, because we're actually in a downturn, you know, and we're flatlining. The economy is flatlining. Everybody talks about Brexit and this, that and the other, but I actually think Brexit is just holding it back. I think that's taking people's eye off the ball.
It's a bit of propaganda, would you say?
Yeah, 100%.
So with your business model, is it, because I always like to speak to different developers, entrepreneurs, but especially in the property sector, because it's a goal of mine. I want to get to that level where, you know, things are happening, my clients and my tenants are really happy, and I just feel good about myself, you know, I've achieved something. So do you go out there and like borrow a bit more money to look for new projects, or is it all because of the tenants which are paying you? You use that cash flow to go out there and expand?
Both.
Both.
We have a policy. Every penny that comes into the business is reinvested into the business. Every penny. There is not one God's penny that goes elsewhere. It's just reinvested into it. And you know, sometimes we'll come across a park that we need financial help. We need to be able to go to the bank, and we look to always borrow no more than 50%. Luckily, we're in a position to be able to do that. It's not always been like that, but now we can. Like this year, I think we've only actually bought 2 parks, but we've just agreed a deal yesterday to purchase 3 parks. Now they won't complete until January or February of next year. So you never actually know when it's going to happen. You know, when you're buying a piece of property, you can say, I want to buy something there, but if you're looking to buy a good value, you have to go where the value is, as opposed to saying where you're going to go. Yeah. Because the moment you start telling people, I want to be in that street, in that area, well then you've got to pay a premium for that.
I was always taught as well, especially through Rob Moore's company and some of the mentors there, don't buy with your heart, buy with a calculator.
Oh, 100%.
Go and buy where the numbers make sense rather than where you fancy. Would you stick to that?
Look, when I'm buying a park or a piece of property, the first thing I look at is what the returns are, not where the property is. The property is a tool to create wealth. That's what a property is. And luckily, I actually think it's not just a tool to create an income stream.
Yeah.
It's a tool to develop as well. When you're buying a piece of property, yes, check, buy with your head, not your heart, but check your figures, check your returns, but then look further than that. Look to see, is there any further development potential? Can you go up? Can you go out? By doing that, you're now increasing the benefit and the wealth of your asset.
The value, yeah. That's what we do on our HMOs, basically.
Yeah.
So I know a few things about you, Alfie, like Financial Times Rich List. These might be some things that may not mean a lot to some people, but for me, it's the kind of little things that when I was a boy, I thought, I always want to get on the rich list. I want to own a Ferrari, for example, which I've thankfully done in my lifetime. I see you got a Bugatti, which has got best in the number plate,
yeah.
and I love your name.
Thank you.
It's the best. And then you got a helicopter, and you got all these kind of things. Do you ever sit there sometimes and think, Jesus, how did this all kind of happen? Because I know you're such a workhorse and you've got that working mentality, but when you sit back sometimes and glance at your portfolio and then also see your toys, do you think, wow, this is quite amazing?
Let me be really honest with you. When I sit here giving an interview, whether it be for Eamon Holmes or Rob Moore or your good self, I actually feel that it's not me. I feel like I'm having a bit of an out-of-body experience and that somebody actually looking at me and looking at that person, because I actually wonder why people want to even talk to me. Mm-hmm. But there's no... What's happened with me is not been magic or because I'm a genius or because I'm really clever. In actual fact, I'm not. It's just good habits, creating good habits and work ethic. And if anybody said to me, what's the secret? The secret is just good habits. Getting up, dressing up, showing up. Do you understand what I'm saying?
And putting that good energy out there and working hard and being positive.
Yeah, of course. Look, the British people are the most negative people in the world. Do you know why? Because it's the weather.
Yeah.
If it's raining, oh my God, it's raining. If it's hot, I can't stick this heat. If it's snowing, oh, it's cold out there.
Yeah.
So their mentality straight on is, it's a down. Instead of thinking, my God, the snow's out, let's go and make a snowman. My God, it's hot, it's fantastic, let's go sunbathing. Whereas you go to somewhere like Barbados or America or anything like that where it's fairly warm most of the time, the weather's never really discussed. It's not an issue. Here, we don't know what the weather's going to be like.
Yeah.
So you tend to base your life around the weather or discuss the weather.
Yeah.
But that carries on further down into your life.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's too hot, you're negative. If it's too cold, you're negative. If it's raining, it's negative. So now my policy is I get up, it's raining, how great. Going to save me water in the garden. If it's hot, fantastic, I can take the roof down.
Yeah.
Everything is a good thing. And if I can lead on to that, and I'll tell you something which really surprised me. And it tells you how powerful mindset is. How many times you woke up and had a bad night's sleep?
Yeah, a few.
So you think you've had a bad night's sleep, and it affects you for the rest of the day. It's a scientific fact. If you keep telling yourself you had a good night's sleep, your mind tricks itself into thinking you had a good night's sleep, and it unaffects your whole day. I was shocked at that, but it tells you how much being in a constructive positive frame of mind can improve your whole day, week, life.
So true. I've got a sales company, a marketing company, as well as the art agency in Soho. And part of sales is all about your mental outlook and your perception on the call, that client, products, the weather, you name it. If it's raining, the good thing about that, people are going to be indoors, so you can call more people. Mm-hmm. If it's sunny outside, people are feeling good, so therefore they're going to be more in tune with your call. So I always have the same mentality, which is no matter what the weather's saying, you can spin it into your own favour.
And you know something, it actually works.
It does.
People don't realise, but it really does work.
It does. And also it's the same with the economy. No matter which politician gets in or Prime Minister, no matter whether Brexit happens or not, whether interest rates go up or down, stock market goes up and down, we will find a way to take the positivity from it.
Yeah, of course. Look, I had somebody ring me, and I hate discussing politics or religion or anything like that. But and he said to me, he said, "What do you think?" He said, "If he said it like," and I've got to be honest with you, I'm not a fan of Corbyn, but I'm actually not a fan of Boris Johnson's either. But the truth of the matter is, I feel Boris Johnson's the better of two evils, if that makes sense. Because at least we know that you've got one person that is pushing towards business ethics, mm-hmm. where the other person is actually trying to take it away. And I'd be shocked, really shocked, if Corbyn got in. I would really be shocked, because I think he doesn't actually feel what the British people feel. I've never seen anybody sit on the fence so much over Brexit. I voted to stay in. Where I've seen, I think Brexit's been a brilliant thing, a real good thing, even though it's been a lot of pain, because it's actually shown how bad Europe has tried to keep us in. And for that, I now want to be out. If they had the vote again, I'd vote out, because I've seen the way they're not prepared to let us go. Why? Because 4 strong economies are supporting 27.
So true.
That doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's all.
I want to talk a little bit about your, like, as a child, mm-hmm. and also your background. And also, so when I said to you, you're one of the people that when I listened to, even though I've never met you until this very day, someone that I felt like I kind of knew. Is really weird, just because the way you talk, I feel like you're so real. And I've spoken to a few like business people like you who are not like up their own arse or they're snobby, or you're just a real genuine person, down, humble.
What you see is what you get.
Exactly, and I just could relate to it. And then you said you used to box, mm-hmm. and you used to train your son.
Yep.
Who's also called Alfie. And I'm a boxer. I fight for the Queensberry League. I had a fight in October, which Chris came and done the recording for and stuff. And one thing I say to everybody, if they ever ask me for any kind of, not advice, but just my view and stuff, I'm nowhere near the level I can start giving advice yet, but...
Actually, you can. And look, you're worldly enough to give advice to people. We can all give advice. Mm-hmm. It's how we package it to people.
Yeah. Well, my number one go-to is start boxing. Because if you can learn to box and hold your own in a boxing ring when times get tough or you're being outboxed, I feel you can take that mindset into business, because sometimes you're winning and you're attacking, but sometimes things will turn and you'll be knocked on your backside. Yeah. And I think if you can learn it in the ring and outside the ring, it puts you in good stead.
But this is my view on boxing. I love it. I have a passion for it. I wasn't a particularly a good coach. And the reason I wasn't a particularly a good coach, because I was reliving my youth through my son. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't make you a good trainer. To be a good trainer, you've got to step aside and let somebody else have their glory. Yeah. That's the honest truth of it. Alfie's having another pro fight this year.
Is he?
And
this year or next?
Sorry, apologies. Yeah, I keep forgetting. No, we're still in 2019. We're in 2020. He's having another pro fight.
That's good.
What I think about boxing is this.
Cheers, mate.
If you see somebody that's brave enough, and I use the word brave enough, to go in the ring and have a go. No matter how good, how bad. Do you know they're normally not trouble causers? Normally they're people that don't go looking for trouble because they've got nothing to prove.
Yeah.
They know the other fella, no matter how good you are, hits just as hard and you can get put on your backside.
You definitely can. So I've been in boxing since I was 14 years of age, and I know fully well, no matter whether I started at Bromley and Downham, South London, and I've gone to different clubs over the years. And no matter where you go, you will come across the travellers. And something that I know about travellers is, number one, they can fucking fight. Number two, they've got heart. So even if they're losing, they're always going to be there. Look at Tyson Fury getting up off the floor.
I think that was amazing.
That was incredible. And then the last one is they have this massive amount of respect, because afterwards they would always ask you, how's your family? You know, and you wouldn't get that from really any other community. I think, is that something you've all been like kind of nurtured into?
Travellers are very family orientated people. You know, we love our children, you know, and we see it that's eternal life where your children get to live on. And they all want their children to have a better life. The reason that boxing is, I would say, inbred in travellers is if you got on a fight as a kid, if I got on a fight as a kid and I didn't hit back, I'd get a worse hiding off my mum or my dad for not hitting back. You know, they don't want to hear about the nonsense about what you're going to knock it out of you and then get on with it. And it's a shame, it's a terrible shame that we haven't got boxing in schools, because I don't think we'd have half the dramas that go on in schools with bullying if you had boxing rings. And look, it was, I think, a staple sport back in the 50s.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now we've got this political correctness all the time of, you know, well, I'm sorry. We're taking kids so far away from reality that, you know, you can't correct kids. Imagine being a teacher and all of a sudden you've got kids swearing at you and, you know, you now can't send them. If I swore at a teacher at school, then I'd have got the cane.
Yeah.
Actually did get the cane, I think. So.
Part of my boxing fight I had is I raised money for my old club called Bromley and Downham, because a couple of years ago they nearly went bust. Yeah. And part of the club is they're attached to a youth centre, so it wouldn't have just been the boxers, it would have been the whole youth club would have gone down as well, and we managed to save it. And now my pledge is to keep on pumping money into it, but my long-term view, when I'm, you know, uber successful, is I want to push and get boxing back into schools, because I'm not saying that knife crime is going to be eradicated because of boxing, but I'm a firm believer that if you bring boxing back in, they give them routine, respect, and more importantly, discipline, which will prevent a lot of these crowds from turning to a knife.
You've got 100%, if a boy gets up, shows up to the boxing, and he's there, he's got to be disciplined to be trained, because he knows if he doesn't, he'll get in that ring and he'll get beat. And the one thing that most boxers, most that I know, they actually all want to win. They just don't want to go through the routine.
Yeah.
They want to have their hand held. And let's be honest, most of the time it's just for a plastic trophy.
Yeah.
But it's not about the trophy. It's about the feeling that it gives them to win. And that winning streak, in my view, if they can just carry it through, can be passed on into business.
It definitely can.
In my view.
So would you say then, when you were younger, that mindset of, you know, togetherness as travellers, that hunger to win, boxing, do you think that has helped you in business?
I'm going to be really honest with you, I don't know. I don't know whether or not that has been part of my makeup, because I don't know how I would have been if that hadn't been the part, and that's the truth. But as a person, I think it's made me a better person. And one of the things that has definitely made me a better person, even if I can be so bold to say so, is I've never had a closed mind. I've always made sure that my mind is open, and I'm always prepared to listen to everybody. Absolutely everybody I will listen to, because we all can learn. No matter who you're talking to, you can all learn. Don't get me wrong, there are some things you don't need to learn.
Yeah.
But my point is, we can all learn. So I'm not sure, to be honest with you. It's definitely made me the person I am. It's definitely added to either the qualities, as some people would see them, or the deficits to other people would see them. But I can tell you this. Yes, we were very poor when I was a kid, but actually I didn't think we were poor. I actually didn't know what poor meant until I got to 10 or 12. It's only when you then start being brought into the real world and understanding money that you understand what wealth is concerned.
When you say you were poor though, what do you mean by that?
Well, we lived on the side of the road. We lived in a caravan, and you know, we were genuinely living off the land. You know, I had coursing dogs. I'd take the dogs coursing. What we killed, we ate. You know, we were poor in a financial regard, but we weren't poor in the point of I had a wonderful mum and dad. Couldn't ask for any better. Would I change any of it? Absolutely not. They weren't bad times, but financially we didn't have what a lot of people had.
And how was school?
Well, I always hid the fact that I was a traveller. I'd never tell people I was a traveller because why? You know, the schooling I went to was periodic. The only long-term bit of schooling that I went was a school in Broxbourne. And you know, as a traveller, we're black men in a white man's skin. And why are you going to tell somebody you're a traveller if you know it's going to be detrimental? I never told anybody I was a traveller in business up until 10 years ago. It was only that I felt that I got to a level that I didn't need to hide it. Can you imagine telling the bank manager you're a traveller? You know, the only thing I would say to you is, what people don't realise, travellers are so hidden within society. Charlie Chaplin, Yul Brynner, Elvis Presley, Mother Teresa, all gypsies. But people forget that, you know, they hid their identity because, again, it would affect them. But if you Google them, they come up.
Yeah. Now, though, I feel like people like Billy Joe Saunders, but more importantly, Tyson Fury, is almost made it like a want by certain people to be more surrounded in that community.
Yeah, I think
might be going through a bit of a phase or a bit of a fashion thing, but
what I would say to you is this: the reason for it is this. When all of a sudden things becomes mainstream, then and people can say, hold on, there is no real difference. It's, you know, being a traveller is a bloodline, and some people would say it's a way of life. Well, I'd agree with them, it is a way of life, but I think it's more than that. And I think it's about being connected to your family. I think it's about knowing where you're from, because if a man doesn't know where he's from, how can he know where he's going in life? You have to accept what you are. We have to accept the tools that we're born with, and it's up to you to sharpen them. That's it. And you know, we're all born with different tools. If you take it back to the boxing, you get in there and some kids have got such a strong jab. You know, you can't get out of the way of it. It's like lightning fast, and it's like a pulver, bang.
Yeah.
Whereas they've got a weak right hand. So they're born with a natural left hand. It's up to them to sharpen their right hand. And that's with all types of other kids, that they've got a natural left hook. Same in business. It's up to us to sharpen our tools that we've got.
Totally makes sense.
And we can only do that by training.
Of course, and repeating it. So school wasn't, you know, wasn't conventional like most people, but then you transitioned into business at a very young age. What was the first business, and how old was you?
I was selling tarmac with my dad. Was knocking on doors.
Cold calling?
Yeah, cold calling. And fantastic learning opportunity. And you also get to learn that how people perceive you. Some people don't see you as just a kid. They'll treat you as an adult. Other people, they only see you as a kid. But you're actually getting to learn to read people. And by learning to read people's facial expressions, you can even tell whether somebody's a weathered person, whether they've worked outside. You grip somebody's hands and their hands are like lumps of iron. You know they're a manual worker. All of those types of things, even to the point of, I remember when I was younger and I'd go out with different girls, I'd know whether they were horse riders just by the feel of their hand, if that makes sense. Or even sometimes, forgive me for saying it, whether their bum was a bit big. If they rid horses, because the back of their legs would be. All of those things about reading people. Now, if I walk in somebody's office, first thing I do is to look at what their habits are. So I'll see if they support football, whether they support boxing. It's just a natural instinct of what we do.
Yeah. On the podcast with Rob, I liked, you spoke about, there was a moment when you were doing really well. I think it was van hiring or something like that. And you were flying, you were living in a nice house, you were earning probably 150 grand a year plus. Drove a Porsche actually, that was what you were talking about. And then suddenly 4 months later, the economy turned on you. And you had to go and work in a mobile phone shop.
I got a job in a mobile phone shop. At the time I was getting 70 quid a week. And I had to beg and plead for that job. I had to beg and plead for it. And it was between that and takeaways. Because I was looking for a job that I could learn and that I could then go away and duplicate that business. Now, mobile phones, they were new, they were sexy, it was the new technology, it was like unheard of. I remember watching that film with the Beverly Hillbillies when I think Grandma picks up the phone and there's no wire on the phone. And she goes, look, he's talking on the phone, but there's no one there because there's no wire. Because every phone had a connection to a wire.
Yeah.
So when I first got into that, it was a phenomenal new thing that you had this box that was connected to nothing and you'd speak.
Yeah.
I learned the industry in a real short period of time, 3 months. I left there, set up my own shop. I got it rent free as long as I paid the rates. And then within 18 months, we had 18 stores.
It's incredible.
We then, what I then did was, I bought the freeholds to every one of those shops, put them on mortgages. So I then had a property company behind the business.
It's a bit like the McDonald's formula.
Pretty much exactly the same thing. And then what I did was I then sold the business and they in turn sold it to Vodafone because it was a subsidiary. But of course, when they owned the business, the property doubled in value because I now had a blue chip company that was my tenant. And that's how we then come into commercial property.
It's amazing. And
it works.
And just trying to remember some of the figures. For over 4 million, Vodafone bought it for?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't Vodafone, it was one of their subsidiaries.
Okay, that's incredible. Like, how did you feel at that point?
Well, at the time, it was all the money in the world. But what made it even nicer, it wasn't like I'd even sold the business because I still owned the freehold. And I then really found my passion. Like, I love business. I love listening to people that are in business. I love hearing how they go to work about it. But the one thing that transcends through in every business, the person that's operating the business must be in the business with a passion for it, not just for the money. Because if you're in it just for the money,
short-lived.
Yeah, it'll pay you for a while, but you then will want to get home early. You'll then want to come in late, and all of that has an effect on your business.
Yeah.
If that passion drains, like if you take now, I'll work here now till 10 o'clock at night because I love what we do. You know, people say, why would you? I have people say to me all the time, you've got a lot of holdings in Barbados. Why would you want? I went, because that's what I do. This is what we do. I love what we do. Property. We've just started a new training academy called the Alfie Best Property Growth.
Comes out in Feb?
Starts in Feb. We've done it for a select few people, genuinely 50 people only, because I want to make a difference. I have Bradley, who I've started it with. He's going to take them through the courses. but I'm going to be involved. I'm going to be there to hopefully top and tail each bit, and I want each person to know me. I want each person to be able to send their questions through to Bradley, and those questions then get finalised by me to go over, and will me put my bit of effort into each and every one, because I'm only going to be as good as the people that succeed. And that's important to me, because I think the property market isn't saturated by any mark of the imagination. All it takes is people with drive and a little bit of know-how. I want to put the little bit of know-how there.
It's good. I think it's a perfect time to put my own personal...
Please, love to hear.
My personal experiences, as I was saying just off camera before. I've got a few single lets, and I've gone into the HMO sector. I've got now 5 and almost 25 rooms once this new unit's done. And just like you said, I find units were a little bit more run down, so I can add value, extend, loft conversions, sometimes go into the basement and add en suites at every single room. And I'm really enjoying it, because it's not wildly different to a single let, but it's different enough for me to feel like I'm growing as an individual. What sort of, I don't know, any recommendations, any bits of advice you can give me on my early stages of growing a property empire?
Yes, 100%. There's a lot of people out there that will admire you for your work ethic of what you're doing. And this is something that I slipped up on, that I didn't do. And there are people that have worked hard all their life, and they're getting no return on their money. Don't be frightened to have a number of investors, but be secure with those investors. So when you're setting up a limited company, give them the accountability of being a shareholder, so they're part of it. And you might be a smaller capital introducer, but you'll still have the same amount of shares, because you're doing the work. You're doing the systems, you're putting in place the rent collections, you're there making sure they have none of that problem, but they've got the benefit of uplifting the property, they've got a benefit of a rental income stream, and a benefit of having security, because that SPV, special purpose vehicle, has been set up honestly, correctly, and very, very transparently. And that's what we will be doing, because when you now have a forte, and the forte that what you is working, so your model is there, it's proven, tested.
Yeah.
It's about duplicating it quicker without, and my advice to you is, go for investors that are like-minded. Actually, people that wanted to do it but didn't have the know-how, but they've stayed in their job or their career, and they've now built up a small cash fund that they want to put to work, because those people will help drive you further forward quicker.
And scale.
100%.
Yeah.
And don't be frightened to do it with one person, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. But when you do it, you're then accountable. So make sure everything is transparent. I always tell every team member that I work with, in whatever I'm doing, don't trust me. Don't trust me. And they go, well, how can we not trust? I go, don't trust me, because I don't trust you. What I want you to do is check. And they go, why do we need to check? I say, because I could have got it wrong. And if I'm getting it wrong and you're checking for me, that means we have a proper partnership. It's about looking out for each other. Not about,
it's really good.
Can I believe him? It's not about, is he trustworthy? I didn't say that. I said, don't trust me. If I said, let's jump out the window for charity, because below, I've just been and checked, and there is a big balloon below, and we'll cushion our thing. And you go, all for charity? Did you check, Alfie? Yeah. So you jump out the window because it's all for charity, and somebody's let the balloon down.
Yeah.
Whose fault was it? It's now mine. Because you say, you said it was okay. How many times have things gone wrong because the other person just took it for granted it was correct? And they didn't do it in any malice. They just assumed. Assumption is the mother of all cock-ups.
It definitely is.
Check.
Always check.
And when you have your investors, you don't have a meeting with one investor at a time, because all you'll end up be doing is having meeting upon meeting upon meeting. You have a monthly meeting with all of your investors, and they all get to hear what's going on, what's not going on, and they get to hear what's benefiting the other investor.
How would you find investors if you was in my position?
Well, social media, podcasting what you're doing, and being open. Don't be frightened to share your secret, and don't be frightened to tell people, look, the real essence. If somebody asks me a question about the value of our company, I tell them, but I don't just spout off some figure. I break it down. I tell them exactly how we come to that figure. Do you know why? I want them to go in company's house and check. Am I lying? Because it's about being completely transparent. The more transparent you are, the more open you are, and you're going to have your naysayers. You're going to have your people that say, oh, he's just boasting, he's bragging. No, you're stating facts. If you don't like the answer, don't ask the question. Be upfront, and finding investors is about being in the right company. Because then when you ask their questions, you've already spouted them out 50 times before and left them out in the public domain for people to check. We have people ring us with property transactions and property deals, I would say to the tune of 5 a day, every day. And we just cherry pick what we like, what we feel suits. And you know, they're all good deals, but they're only good deals to the right person. And when you're bringing on an investor, don't ever just take an investor for the money. Never. What other expertise has he got? Is he an accountant? Is he a solicitor? Is he a surveyor? Is he a tiler? Is she a secretary? What's their skill set? What else are they going to bring to the party? And by doing that, you've now created a consortium.
Nice.
Big effort reaps massive rewards.
So the HMO market, is it something that you've ever got into?
We have done it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be very, very honest with you. My passion is not particularly in it. It's things that and we've had several. But for me, we're not looking to build scale in that business.
Yeah.
You have to have a passion for something to really say, we're really going to get into this market and we're really going to kick some ass. We're going to get out there. And to be fair, my passion is residential property, and I tend to like high scale, high end property.
What, like Mayfairs and places like that?
Yeah, we have. We tend to have properties in Hampstead, and we have 5 block townhouses. I've got villas in Barbados. Barbados is in a terrible recession, so we're buying at value. But we've got some of the most beautiful properties you've ever seen. Now that floats my boat. So I'm gone down that route. I tend to like commercial property, and my real passion and love is mobile home parks. I love them. Absolutely not because they're a good income stream. I love them because I have the solution, categorically the solution to the affordable housing problem. And let me explain to you why, because that's a big statement what I've just said. I can produce and sell a new park home on a like for like basis of a bricks and mortar bungalow for 50% or less. So why on earth would the country, government, councils not be backing the park home industry when there's no stamp duty? Council tax is normally 33% cheaper. Electric is at least 30% cheaper in a park home. That's because it goes through 1 metre and you buy it at a commercial rate, and we then pass that rate on.
Yeah.
So why would they not be backing it? Well, it's very simple. It doesn't pay because there's no stamp duty, and the poll tax is 33% or less cheaper because it's band A. So people that buy park homes, we're changing their life, completely changing their life, because they're selling their home. They're selling a home for 300,000, 400,000, 500,000, buying a park home from anything from 70,000 all the way up to 350,000, and putting the rest of the money in their pocket. And they're living the life they really should have. And so we're changing people's lives.
Really good.
And I feel so passionate about it. That's why we stick to what we do best.
So sort of this question is going to go hand in hand with kind of what you said, but with myself, again, just because I'm trying to build momentum in this sector, would you just stick at HMOs or would you diversify later on?
Right, okay. When you diversify, be prepared to pay a tax. It's called the idiot tax, and we all have to pay it. I've paid it time and time again. When you change and you get into a new market, and when I say a new market, I'm talking about still in the property market, but you're doing something different.
New version of it.
Then all of a sudden, you're the greenhorn, and you get burnt. And I class that as the idiot tax. They see us coming, and they want to fine us for doing it. So we have to pay for the privilege. And unfortunately, it's very difficult to get around it. That's why now, if I started again, the first thing that I would be doing would be going through a property course, because I'd want to sidestep as many of those pitfalls as possible. What you're doing is working. What I did and how I set my goals was I set my goals on what my financial income was. And do you know what my goal was?
Go on.
My goal was £1,000 a week rental income. And I realised that once I'd managed to make £1,000 a week, that gave me 52,000 a year. And at that time, and I'm talking about when I was 25, you could purchase a flat for £35,000. So I knew every year, organically, it was going to buy 1.5 flats. And then before I knew it, it became £5,000 a week. Before I knew it became 20. Today, our rental income is £1.25 million a month. So it's just about setting those little goals, and then the momentum will start happening for itself. It will take on a life of its own. The business will work on its own. You know, I'm not, you see Alfie best as being Wyldecrest. I'm not. Wyldecrest has surpassed me, and the way that we've set it up, it actually doesn't belong to me, it belongs to all of my team. And they're the real stars here. I just happen to be lucky enough to take the glory for it. But the truth is, I have really good people. The momentum's growing. It will continue to grow, and we will continue to push it forward because we want to leave a legacy.
Yeah.
We're Europe's largest residential park home operator, and that's not where we're stopping. We want to become the global park home operator of the world, and the biggest. And this year, we won Global Park Operator of the World.
Incredible.
It's for a little British company that was started by some gypsy. So if I can do that, anybody can do it. Because I'm a nobody. And that's a fact.
That's good.
Well, it works for me.
So I'm always interested, about people's businesses and how they got to the success they got to, which you've covered and I've learned over different podcasts. But let's say your structure then. Like if you've got something in Barbados, something in America, Europe, and also over here, you just don't have one limited company, I would imagine, and that runs everything. Is it like fancy structures? You get like good advice from certain chartered accountants? Because I'm just trying to think about my future in 10 years' time. How would I go about structuring?
Right, let me say this to you. And it's an extremely valid question. I've had people come in that want to start new ventures up with me. And there's a decision that I make from the offset. The moment they start coming in and saying, right, we need an accountant to be able to sort this structure out. Yeah. We need a solicitor to draw up the shareholdings. We need to do this. We need to do that. We need to do this. Okay. They've already spent £50,000 and the company hasn't earned a penny. How do you even know if the company's going to succeed? I'm learning how to fly a helicopter. I've done 55 hours as a pilot. And the one thing that they teach you when flying a helicopter is whatever happens, forget about the weather, forget about navigation, forget about what's going wrong with the gearbox, forget about the engine failure. And you think, well, Jesus, what have you got to worry about? Flying the helicopter. First and foremost is remember to fly that helicopter, because it doesn't matter what's going wrong, you've got to stay in control of it. That's the same with the business. You've got to stay in control of the business and keep it simple. If somebody makes it difficult with this fangled attributes of how it should be set up and offset shares and semi-voting, I'm sorry. We need to see if the business is going to work first before we spend £50,000 on legal fees.
Yeah.
Okay, you say, well, you don't want to cause arguments down the road. I agree with that, but that's why it's transparent, simple, and the shareholdings are set up in a limited company how you want them done. Now, I feel like a good politician and I avoided your question because you asked me how the structure works with running other properties in different countries. Exactly the same way that it works here. There is a process that is put in place. So if you take the Barbados properties, there is a property manager who looks after the housekeepers that run the property. Anything above £50, she requires an order number, and she emails back to here. And there is a manager here who's our property manager, and that property manager will read for her email, he'll put it on the system, and all the time they're ordering order numbers, we're building up data. We fitted a bath tap last week. Then all of a sudden you find you're getting an idea of what costings cost to fit a bath tap last week. And it may be in a different property, but by building that data up, it stops waste. It gives you an idea of what costings cost to fit something in Barbados, because we don't know. And we always say we want 3 estimates. 3 estimates constantly. Simple, easy process that works. Complaints. We have a system here for complaints. You ring, email, you ring straight in for them. The complaint gets logged. The time frame. And they have 48 hours in which to reply to that complaint, unless it's classed as a red complaint, which means an emergency.
I know you're always flat out with work and you're always looking to better yourself and build a business. Outside of that, what do you do for fun? You must have a bit of fun every so often.
Truth? I work.
That's what your fun is?
I swear to you on the Holy Bible, that's my fun. And look, success, when people say people are successful, we're all successful. Everybody in this country is successful in some realm or another. the success that we're talking about is financial. Well, I've got a hell of a long way to go. Hell of a long way to go. I'm only number 450 richest person in the country. I need to be at number 1. And then when I get to number 1, I've then got to look at where I stand in the world. So I'm successful at a level. I'm still climbing the ladder and I'm enjoying doing it.
That's good. What about like when you travel, though? Do you go to any special parts of the world, or is it always going to see your homes and enjoying the moment?
I try my hardest to now live in the moment. I try not to waste my time and thought on what could be, wouldn't be, should be. I'm not interested in negative people that want to put a downer on whatever you're doing. What I want to do is go, let's enjoy what we're doing now. That could be building a mobile home park. That could be converting a hotel in Bromyard that I've just bought. You know, it could be a multitude of different things. It could be I'm flying to Barbados and I'll go out there and I'll visit the properties that we're doing. The reason that I bought property in Barbados, I went out there for a trip. Couldn't help myself. And 1 became 2, 2 became 10.
It's good.
Well, it works for me.
One thing I want to ask you about family. I've got a son and he's only just turned 1.
Yeah.
And he's got a long way to go until he's getting into property or into business. But just like you, I like to nurture my son at a young age. Definitely want him to do boxing.
How old's your boy?
Just turned 1.
Oh, right, yeah. He's a baby.
So yeah, I want to get him into boxing. And then we've got a company called Tungsten Management Group, which is in the HMO sector. But once that's at a certain level, I'm not going to push him into it, but I feel with the right knowledge and guidance, he'll probably want to start taking it over. I notice your son is very successful, but I also see that he's doing slightly different things, which is reality TV show, for example. I interviewed a guy called Terry Stone, who's an actor.
Yeah, I know Terry really well.
And he was on my podcast, and there was I think it was London. There was a
Once Upon a Time in London.
And your son had a bit of a feature in it.
Yep.
So how did your son get involved with like the acting side of things?
Alfie has a really vibrant sparkle as a character, and I mean a natural. You know, he's witty, he's funny, and on the programme Absolutely Ascot, they came here, and I know one of the producers quite well, Demi Moore, who's actually a friend of my son's, and her husband's a friend of my son's, and I've got a lot of time for Demi. She's going to do great stuff, fantastic stuff, and when she first was writing up the programme, Alfie was at the forefront while the programme was written, because he was having such a good life. You know, not only was he working hard, he was playing hard. You know, he was young, he was driving a new Ferrari, he was 19 years old, he was boxing, you know, and then on top of that, he's earned 2 mobile home parks, which he's earned himself.
It's good.
It doesn't, and that's how that programme come about. Terry, we know quite well. Terry said, look, he looks like a new, not like a new Paul Newman. He said, I've got a great part for him, let's put it in there. So he's been quite blessed in how his life's, you know, turned out. But he's had his own difficulties with some disloyal friends over the years. And you tend to find, as you become successful, you get to find out who your real friends are.
I hear that. Well, maybe at some point I can interview him as well.
Yeah, look, listen, I'm sure he'd be privileged to.
Yeah. I don't want to take too much of your time. The only last thing I want to say to you, Alfie, is just like Rob Moore, he has his own catchphrase. Mine is be happy, never content. I live by that. It's something I came up with when I first had my own sales floor back at 24, 25 years of age. Again, it's all about outlook on life. It's about your perception, your mental well-being. And I feel like positive quotes which you stand by day in, day out can actually really serve you. Yeah. So I've got my own interpretation of what that means. But if I were to say to you, be happy, never content, what's your understanding or your interpretation of that?
Okay, tell me what it was again.
Be happy, never content.
Well, what I would take from that is somebody that's being happy, but always striving to do better. That's what I would take from it.
That's definitely it. All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Pleasure's mine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Great.
Be happy, never content. Thank you very much.
Good stuff.
Thank you, sir.
Pleasure's mine.
You've been a gent. Thank you. On the train back to London Bridge, finished another fantastic episode of the Stephen Sully study with a real property tycoon, a guy called Alfie Best. Guy's worth hundreds of millions of pounds. He's in the Financial Times rich list. He's got big goals to become the biggest company in his sector in the world. He owns a couple of Bugattis, he owns G-Wagons, he owns helicopters, he owns mansions, he owns places in Barbados. And putting all that to a side, the guy is just so down to earth and so relatable. He was a traveller at heart when he was young. He's from a travelling background, and he's just pushed on. Like, he used to live on the side of the road, and now he can live anywhere he wants in the world with who he wants and how he wants. I know you're definitely going to get value from the episode. I know you're going to definitely enjoy it. You're going to get inspiration, education and motivation, and that's my goal. My goal is to bring key guests that you learn from, I learn from, and we can take what they've taught us and we can implement it into our life. This is about studying successful people and then implementing some of their life key lessons, and that's how we're all going to grow, and that's how we're all going to be successful as well. Be happy, never content. I look forward to hearing from you, and please leave a review. And my only ask is you would subscribe and recommend me to your friends and family. Have a good night. Peace out. Enjoy Christmas.